Today on the roadmap, we're going to be talking about an email that has to do with auto repair, taking your texts and phone calls, haboobs, flash floods, and that musty air condition. Is your car ready for monsoon? Matt, you look confused.
I think mine's ready. I don't know. It probably is. I do a pretty good job of being diligent and getting into the shop three times a year. But I don't know, Dave. Is there much we can? You broke it down three things: haboobs, flash floods, and the stink. There's not much we can really do to prevent any problems with our car from any of these things that are coming up. I guess we can be prepared, right?
Well, I think of haboobs, and I was in a haboob here a couple years ago that I was actually driving in, and it was rough. We both were driving in that haboob, and the only thing that comes to mind in haboobs is driving habits is something you can certainly affect. What do we do when there's a haboob? And the other thing is just filters. I'm thinking, oh man, is my car inhalating all that stuff? So I just think of filters. That's something you can address and be ready for. And if your car's got regular maintenance, chances are the first thing the auto shop's going to sell you is an air filter. It is something you can change yourself. The other thing is a cabin filter. Those are the things I think of when I think of haboobs. But other than that, what do we need to do for our car?
Well, but I'll tell you what, and I'm not suggesting at all that anybody does it. And I'm not going to go out at the beginning of haboob season, if we want to call it that. I'm not going to go out and get my cabin air filter changed or my engine air filter. Why would I do that? They're going to get dirty. And quite frankly, we were talking before the show, and I think a slightly dirty air filter with a little bit of oil on it from the crankcase ventilation and such, I think that's probably going to do a better job than a brand new air filter of getting some of those trapping some of those particles. So to be prepared for a haboob itself, I'm not going to do anything. For the monsoon, though, we want to make sure there's only two or three things. We're going to make sure the wiper blades are working, and more importantly, or as important, we want to make sure the squirters are working. I don't know how many cars we see where we go fill the windshield washer bottle during a service and it's leaking out the bottom, or the squirters don't, they go off to the side. Or
I remember following one of your technicians when I was leaving your shop, and I'm following them. They have like a little test drive route they go on, and this guy's turning on the wiper blades and the sprayers and all that stuff. I'm like, what the heck is he doing? He's checking to see if the wiper blades are good and if the sprayers work.
It's all those little things. So you can do that stuff you do at home. Go get a sewing needle or a paper clip and make sure those things, you can aim them. Those little squirters are a little ball, and you can point that. Make sure those are good. And if your wiper blades aren't tearing on the edges, I like to take the Brillo sponge and just give them a wipe. They will actually clean. The bugs get baked on there. Heck, when was the last time it rained?
128 days, I think, is what I heard.
Try pulling the horse out of the barn and go run without getting some exercise. I mean, the wiper blades have been parked. They're probably fried to the windshield.
Stuck the window.
So clean those off. And then we want to make sure our headlights and taillights and all of those signals are working, so that if we are out stuck in this haboob, then we know how to act. And you talked about driving habit, Dave.
Driving habits, and we've all seen the story of the I-10 and the pileup and the dust storm. And really the key is, get off the road. Yes, get off the road. That's a good thing to do. So pull over to the right side of the road, put the car in park, and take your foot off the brake. That way, the guy behind you doesn't think he's following you, and slam into you. So that is going to be it as far as the driving. I can't think of what other driving habits. Do you want your headlights on?
Well, when I was thinking driving habits, I'm saying slow your roll a little bit.
Oh, yeah,
slow
right.
Slow down, Parnelli. It's
Nitro.
Dusty. Yeah, it's dusty. It's raining. Potentially, just back it down a little bit. It's going to be safer for you and safer for everybody else. When it rains, Dave, what happens? We get the initial rain, and all that little bit of rain does is just bring and make that oil float on top of the road. That's when it's the most slippery. I don't know if I can't say slipperiest for some reason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's when the even when you're walking and it hasn't rained, when you're walking on the pavement, you feel how slick that cement is. So you got to slow your roll there as well when it's raining. It does take longer to stop. And so that's the other thing. But the thing I think about is the flash floods. And I think about that guy sitting on his hood in the middle of the wash, waiting for the fire crew to come bail him out, because he's that guy that just had to get somewhere, that had to cross that deal. That guy's always on the 5 o'clock news. It never fails.
And I am sympathetic to maybe the older couple. I don't want to stereotype here, but you're sympathetic to some people. But the guy that you don't mind seeing sitting on the top of that thing is the guy in the Hummer who thought he was going to make it across the wash. And he was the guy that was so pissed at everybody else. He's honking at him to get to the front of the line to be the first one across the wash.
Well, we were talking about before the show how much water through a wash is too much, and you have no idea what's in the bottom of the wash, but some of these washes have these little measuring sticks right next to them. And if you drive a four-door sedan, how much water is too much water? I mean, is that 6 inches? Is that 12 inches? It's usually 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know. I think a foot of water, and if it's not coming down, if it's not raging, and as long as the road is underneath it, it hasn't already washed out.
Yeah, you don't know. And then there's the debris that might be coming down that, you get a branch or something floating in that. Depending on how rapid that's coming, that can do some serious damage to the car. So stay out of the washes, I guess, is the point. Don't be the guy in the news.
The other thing that you mentioned is parking in low spots. Some of these parking lots, you're headed for the shady spot, because it's sunny out when you go into the store. When you come back out and there's a flash flood going on, your car might be buried in water. We've seen that happen.
Well, when I had the towing company, we used to cover the central Phoenix area from like 44th Street to 19th Avenue, Thomas to Washington or something like that. And there was this park, I can't remember it, but there's a parking lot office building around the 44th Street or 40th Street in Washington area. And I think it's one of the hotels or something like that. Well, the light rail wasn't there then. But we would always get calls because we had the self-loading truck where you don't have to get out of the truck to hook up the car. When it would flood, there was inevitably this property management company was calling us because there were 6 cars where the water was up past the door plate where you open the door jamb. So that's one thing to pay attention where you park your car, even something to think about.
Well, and then the mustiness that shows up this time of year in your car. Why? I know why, but I'm asking you. Explain to me why it gets musty in your car.
Well, it's humid out, and when we're using the air conditioner, we're drying the air. We're using the air conditioner to remove the moisture from the air and then cool the car. So this would be the one time of year, and this will be the only time you'll probably hear me say, if your car is not leaking, you need to be concerned. This is the time where you want to see water leaking out of your car.
And that leak you're talking about is happening just about underneath the passenger front seat of the car.
Yeah, if you're Barney and you're riding in Fred's car and you put your feet down on the passenger side, if there's no floorboard there, that's about the area you would expect. And what that is, that's the air conditioning condensation drain. Again, same thing at your house. You've got that pipe sticking out of the wall in some places with water dripping out of it. When your car is running the air conditioner, that should be dripping a little bit of water out. And if it's not, that means it's accumulating in the car.
That's
it could be spilling over. That needs to be flooding out, and that's where you get that. Oh, and you're going to get that smell even if
we have all this talk about dew point. When the dew point gets up, and that's the point where dew forms, where the moisture comes out of the air, and we're talking about a dew point of 55. That coil for the air conditioner, the evaporative coil, that thing's 35 degrees. So there's all kinds of water forming on it, and it's coming out, but throughout the monsoon months, that's when the mustiness in your car gets really stinky. And I know you guys got some things you do over at Virginia Auto Service to eliminate that, and we'll get into that later because I hate that smell. I'm embarrassed when people get in my car. I'm like, I hope they don't think that's me.
Is that you stank, man. Is that your armpits or is that your car, Dave?